Welcome back into our series of Economic Collapse, America's Road to the Great Depression. Based on our 6 main causes of the Great Depression, this video will cover the decline of the farming industry. In our last video, we talked about the overproduction of goods and how farmers had overextended themselves in the 1920s. This episode is going to further dive into that phenomenon. Farming had historically been the backbone of the American economy. We were founded by farmers. By 1929, however, the U.S. agricultural industry was in deep decline. During the 1920s, farmers borrowed heavily from banks to pay for new, technologically advanced equipment. But as farmers failed to sell their extra crops, they became unable to repay their bank loans, including their mortgages. As a result, many farmers defaulted on their loans, and some lost their farms to bank foreclosures. The banks would then attempt to auction off the foreclosed farmland and equipment in an effort to recoup some of the money. However, most farmers could barely hold on to their own farms, let alone purchase another's. Consequently, the banks frequently ended up taking a loss. In 1929, many banks collapsed under the combined pressure of farmers' ongoing economic problems and the stock market crash. Farmers' situations only grew worse as the Depression deepened. Between 1929 and 1933, farmers' income dropped by 50%, and their property values decreased by billions of dollars. To make matters worse, farmers in the mid and southwestern United States were hit with a drought so severe that the soil turned to a powdery dust that swept across the plains in choking black clouds. The region became known as the Dust Bowl, and farmers fled it in droves. Altogether, over 1 million families lost their farms between 1930 and 1934. Farmers fleeing the Dust Bowl headed west to California in search of employment and land. People often referred to the migrating farmers as Okies, an allusion to the Oklahoma origins of many of the refugees. Unable to afford decent housing, many of these families lived in makeshift shacks and shanties outside city limits. One such housing area near Salinas, California, nicknamed Little Oklahoma by locals, contained roughly 10,000 inhabitants. An inspector describing farmers' living conditions in Sacramento, California, wrote, quote, "The dwellings are built of brush, rags, sacks, boxboard, odd bits of tin and galvanized iron, pieces of canvas, and whatever other material was at hand at the time of construction. Entire families, men, women, and children, are crowded into hovels, cooking and eating in the same room. The majority of the shacks have no sinks or cesspools for the disposal of kitchen drainage. And this, together with garbage and other refuse, is thrown on the surface of the ground," end quote. The unrelenting poverty of the American farmer not only contributed to the nation's overall economic decline during the Great Depression, it also threw into dramatic relief the tremendous gap between America's haves and have-nots. And in the last episode here, we will talk about the unequal distribution of wealth. See you next time.